Hello and welcome back to part 3 of my Alien X-500 build. Out of the 4 videos that I'm going to be making in the series, this one is going to be the most information-packed one of the series. I have a lot of stuff that I want to discuss and cover over this video that I have learned in the last few days of reading countless and countless hours of forums trying to figure out how to set all this stuff and get it to work correctly. So without further ado, I'll just jump right into it. I got a few things in, and I wanted to make a video of the components and stuff that I got in, but I kind of got in a hurry and just started throwing stuff together and without even thinking about it. So I took a picture and I wanted to kind of go over some of the things that I've gotten. To the right is the Turnigy 9X 8-channel receiver. Unfortunately, being a lower end controller and receiver, it is actually PWM. I'm sure most of y'all know what all that's about. You have to have a signal wire for each channel. But unfortunately, the bad thing about that is if you're going to run GPS on the NAS32, it is possible to do it with a PWM receiver, but you end up losing 2 of your channels. And if there's anything else you want to add, like the LED strip, you're really pinching to having any auxiliary channels to use. So when I was on readytoflyquads.com, I ran across this PPM encoder. And I gotta tell you, it's the coolest thing. You can plug your PWM receiver into this and it will convert it to a PPM signal. And what this does for you is it gives a single signal wire to the NAS32, which opens up all your other pins that you normally would use your PWM. The best thing about this component, it was only $5. So definitely jumped on that, and it has made life so much easier. And it comes with the wiring that you see there. The pins that I soldered in, the single lead to FC, you can see there kind of towards the bottom of the screen, ground, 5 volt, and PPM. Those pins there, I actually had to buy them separately. You can also get them from that same place that I got the little board from. I think you get 40 of them for $1, pretty cheap. But anyway, I soldered those pins in, and those will go directly to the NAS controller. But for $5, can't beat it. Definitely worth the investment if you don't have a higher end PPM receiver. Okay, to the left of that is the minimal OSD with KVT mod V1.0. Definitely a cool little board to have. I will go into some more detail on how to set this up exactly. There's a lot of things I've had to do and figure out that I couldn't quite find on some of the forums and videos that are available on the internet. But that also I got from readytoflyquads.com, and that also, it was only $11, so I mean, you can't really beat it. It's pretty much a plug and play. You do have to EEPROM flash it and reload the software and set up a couple of things on it, but other than that, it's pretty easy to set up and get going. And down towards the bottom is, of course, the video transmitter. I got that from Quadcopter for $35. I believe that was in my first video, I think. And then, of course, up there towards the top is my adjustable voltage step down. One of the things that I was concerned about was running the GPS, minimal LOSD, and a few other components through the NAS32 was drawing way too much current through there. I was worried about it, whether or not it'd be able to handle it. So what I opted to do was I actually found these little boards on eBay, and I think they were $2.50 a piece. And they have 2 leads in and 2 leads out. Of course, I had to solder the pins on the rear. You can see they're red and black pins. And it has a little pod that you can adjust the voltage all the way down from whatever you're putting in up to, I think 13 or 14 volts is or whatever the highest supply that you're giving it. And this is what I plan to run my LED strips on, is because, like I said, I was concerned about pulling too much current through the nays, hooking up LED lights along with everything else that I was plugging into it. So I put some pins on it, a couple of pins on it, so not only could I run lights, but I could also run something else at 5 volts, because I have it set at 5 volts. And I am going to be running that particular board off of my camera battery. Everything else is going to be ran through my flight battery. The transmitter and the PPM encoder is going to be ran through the nays. But everything else, the video camera, the video transmitter, the minimal OSD, and all that kind of stuff there will be ran through the camera battery. But anyway, we'll now go and look. Alright, so let's get to it. I'm going to switch over to the camera and we'll go look at the quad. Alright, here we are at the bench. The first thing I want to talk about is the GPS module that I've got here. I got this from readytoflyquads.com. The GPS was $18, and the little black box that you see that it's in was $3. So that's what I opted for, and I gotta tell you, it was most definitely not a mistake. That little GPS is awesome. It picks up satellites so quickly. It's kind of astonishing. And not only that, the other day I was in there at the computer while I had it hooked up. I had 12 satellites locked inside the house. That is really impressive, I thought. One of the things that about this GPS that I kind of noticed, you know, when you're running your power supply, you know, you're getting it from one of the ESCs powering the nays, and therefore you can power everything else. In amongst of trying to set all this stuff up, I noticed that my ESCs were getting, or one of them was getting the one real hot, the one I was pulling the power from, which was number 1. So that kind of made me wonder about whether or not I should power my GPS from a separate ESC, since they're all 4, you know, capable of giving me 5 volts. And of course, all the forums and stuff you read talk about only powering your flight controller through one ESC. So that's what I've done. But I was kind of thinking maybe the power consumption through one of those ESCs was a bit much, especially since I felt it getting kind of warm. So what I did is I actually pulled one of the power wires, and these are just dummied in there. I've clipped the pin and I just kind of stuck the wire back in there, so I just didn't have a heat shrinked in or a wire just kind of hanging out there. But what I did is I pulled one out of number 3, I believe, the hot side here, and I used this to actually power my GPS module. Some of this wiring is kind of just hanging out here. I'm still trying to configure it and everything. So I've kind of just got it hanging out here for the moment, but I'm going to tuck it all away once I get done. And then of course your TX and RX pins, pin 3 and pin 4, I believe. No, it's, yeah, pin 3 and pin 4 is a TX and RX. And remember to the TX from the GPS goes to the RX on the flight controller, and vice versa with the RX and TX going the other direction. Of course, I separated these so I can have power, the 2 pins here for power and negative, and, or ground, and then the other one here for the RX TX, so I can just simply unplug it. This is some copper shield to kind of help block some of the noise. I really didn't know if I was going to have a big problem with it, but I went ahead and put some on it. Put some on both sides, the bottom there and the top. I figured it couldn't hurt anything. It's worth a try. One of the biggest issues that I see or read people having issues with GPS-wise is the noise, especially coming from the flight controller and electronics. Even having power wires that run too close to the GPS can really cause it to have issues. So that's one of the reasons why I mounted it right here in the very butt of this thing, is so that hopefully that wouldn't be an issue. And as I set all this stuff up, I really thought I was having problems with the GPS, but we'll go into that more detailed when I show you how I've configured this and set it all up. But anyway, that is pretty much it. I got everything together. On the minimal OSD, There is going to be some soldering done in a lot of this stuff, so you're going to have to be kind of real small pins, kind of like on the flight controller. You have to solder some small pins in it. Normally these came with the pins and the plugs. So what I opted to do instead of plugging this in right here is I just went ahead and soldered them to the wires to the pins, and I separated them. This is going to be your negative or your ground and your power, 5-volt power, and this is going to be my RX and TX lines that go into the top of the RX TX lines of the NAS 32. And remember, anytime you connect USB to configure on your computer, or if you have this plugged in, you can only run one port at a time. So this is another reason why I separated these plugs like this, is so that when I do plug in through the USB, I can just unplug this, I can power everything up, and I can configure it that way. One of the cool things about this on-screen display, which I didn't realize until after I'd gotten it, that you can adjust some of your values, some of your PIDs, and things like that through your on-screen display. But just to remember, that was one of the things that I ran into when I was trying to get all this configured, is that I didn't realize that I can only tap into communication parts of the board through one way at a time. But I went ahead and mounted, I originally was going to put my camera down here, but then I realized I did get to fly this thing before I had the GPS and the on-screen display and all that stuff put on it. Just trying to get my PID values at a flying, where I can actually fly the thing before I started adding all this other stuff. I didn't want to have a whole bag of worms trying to figure out exactly what was causing problems. So I wanted to get it flight worthy first, and then I started adding on the different components. But anyway, I did put my Mumbus on here and flew with it, and of course right here my props are right smacking away. So I went ahead and lowered it, brought this camera up here. It's going to be in my screen, I think, when I'm flying, but I'd rather have it up there when I'm flying instead of in the video that I'm trying to capture. So I went ahead and put it on some anti-vibration mounts here to help keep that, and also when I mount my Mumbus down here, it's going to be on some as well. Let's turn this around. You can see over here where I've got my transmitter and option on the directional antenna. I don't know how well this is going to work, because most people mount it in the back, but that's where I ended up running the GPS, and I'm trying to keep as much of the electronics and stuff away from this as possible to keep from having any issues with it, because as much stuff as I read, GPS is a real finicky to get set up and running, and I didn't want to really have to fight with that, so that's why I went ahead and mounted in the back. But I did on the on-screen display, of course, you can run on your screen, you can see your voltage for your flight battery and for your secondary battery, which in this case is going to be my camera batteries running all that. So that's a lot of what the wiring and stuff is that you see inside there is going to be running all of that. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I do these props. I really like these props from APC. Definitely worth the money. Definitely get those props. But anyway, that's pretty much it for the hardware part of it. There's a lot of stuff on YouTube and forums about how to flash the on-screen display. The only thing I will say about this on-screen display, let me turn this thing back around here. On this side, there are 5 pins. And, you know, a lot of the stuff that I read about these pins right up here is you only need 4 of them. You need your ground, your 5-volt, your TX, and RX. So when I went to flash this board, I was not thinking that, okay, I need just the 4 pins. No, actually you need, I believe there's 6 pins. You need all 6 pins with the tool that a USB tool that you hook up to actually flash your on-screen display. But that's one of the things I didn't realize is you need to go ahead and solder all your pins on. That way when you connect your USB adapter there, that it will connect. Otherwise it will not work. Of course, when you hook it up to your Naze 32, you're only going to drop down and use just the 4 pins instead of all 6. But that was a mistake that cost me several hours because I just didn't realize it. I didn't see any documentation on it because everything I was reading is all you needed was the 4 wires. I'm sure I missed it somewhere, but that was something I wanted to point out to save somebody some heartache trying to figure out why they can't EEPROM flash the minimal OSD and then flash back in the new settings through the GUI. Alright, so I guess what I'll do next is we'll go back on the computer and I'll show you what I had to do for the CLI and the PID settings and stuff like to actually get this thing work. Alright, so we'll head over to the computer. Okay, here we go. I've got my flat battery plugged in, my controller plugged in, and my USB plugged in. And by the way, I am running the Cleanflight. Reading a lot of forums that I have. I've probably got 20 hours of reading forums trying to learn as much as I could possibly learn when it comes to doing some of this stuff. Timecop's comments, the way he responds to people, talks to people, I just really don't like his attitude that he has, which that in itself is the reason why I gotten away from base flight. But also Dominic has done a lot when it comes to Cleanflight, some of the features he added, and seeing some of the comments and stuff that how he talks to people. I feel like he really cares about you know, how his software is being used. So those are my reasons for using Cleanflight, besides the fact that I think it's a whole lot better than base flight. But anyway, we'll just jump right in here and get started. Of course, we know about calibrating the accelerometer, magnometer, and stuff like that and whatnot. Here are my throttle settings: max, minimum, fail-safe, the battery, magnometer declaration. We'll get into that here in just a moment. First thing I want to point out is this PID, in this PID tab here, is this section right here, the profile. Somehow or another, when I was setting this up, I do not know how I done it, but you can actually come down here and click and change your profiles. You can change your rate profiles and stuff like that. And each profile, these right here that you see in profile 3 are actually defaults. So you can, if you ever change one and you want to know what your defaults are, you can always go back to your profiles and look. And when you click on these and change your profiles, it also changes everything in CLI. So what you have set in profile 1 in CLI will not be the same in profile 2. And that was one of the things that really caused me a lot of problems, because I'm not sure how I done it, but I clicked on this, or I changed it somehow, and I was making settings on 2 different profiles, and I didn't even realize I was doing it. And I had caught it because, you know, I go into CLI and I could have swore I set something, but it wasn't there. But something I caught on to. So always be sure when you go to in your PIDs or you go into CLI, just kind of glance at the profile here and make sure when you're making changes that you're doing it in the profile that you think you're doing it in. So the first thing we need to do is go click on the CLI tab. You can go ahead and hit dump. I do this a lot of the times just so that I can see everything that I've got set, what's going on here. But anyhow, one of the first things you want to do when you're running the ppm encoder, because as we shown you in the first part of the video, is that I went ahead and plugged that in so that I can free up the pins on the Naze. First thing we want to type in the CLI is feature RX_ppm, and you want to do each one of these lines and then hit enter. And I will actually in the comment section below, or in the descriptions below, I will post everything in that I had typed into CLI to get this going. So the first thing is feature RX_ppm, and then of course we're going to configure our GPS, so we want to add feature GPS. And then one of the things that I did not realize, and it was after several hours of reading and finding, and you're going to hear me say that a lot because I did a lot of reading, one of the things that you also need to set while you're in here is set serial _port _2 _ synchronize. I think that's how we spell it. And then you got to hit enter. And then one of the things that you need to do is make sure that the baud rate, first of all, you need to know the baud rate on your GPS. If you get the ones from readytofly.com, they are already preset to the 115200 baud rate and the 5 megahertz, I believe. Very important when it comes to GPS hold. You definitely want the fastest baud rate and the fastest processor. You need to be able to communicate the coordinate. You know, the two pieces need to be able to communicate with each other and fast, because you get some of the slower ones and they don't quite do as good as job as I think as these faster ones. And by the way, this is the Ublox GPS, and you will need to, in CLI, also put in GPS provider. Scroll down here to somewhere some of these are, so you can see them. I can find them. GPS. I think it's up here. Somewhere right in here. I always have to search to find them. There it is, GPS provider 1. 0 is for the other, I can't remember what it's called, the other GPS that works with the NAS, and the 1 is for the Ublox. And also the SBAS mode is 2. Depending on where you live at, you'll want to take your documents on Cleanflight, and mode 2 is actually for the United States. Another thing that we want to do, we'll talk about, is the GPS. Go down here. The GPS waypoint WP radius. There's a lot of discrepancy on that. I'm not 100% sure if that actually has something to do with position hold. I read a couple places in the forums where that has nothing to do with it. But I went ahead and it was 200, and I changed it down to 100. As I was changing a bunch of settings, this is one of the things I changed that kind of helped it. But I think a lot of this, all this right here, the waypoint radius, the navigation controls, the heading. The heading is going to be whether it's coming nose in or tail in to you after you hit return to home. But I think a lot of this is a return to home. The speed that it does it, the minimum speed, the maximum speed. But I'm pretty sure all that has got to do with the return to home, and that's something that I have not messed with a whole lot. In my fourth and final video, I'll cover some of the things like return to home, and also going to do a lot of some of the flight videos as well in the fourth video. Another thing that you'll want to be sure and set, unless you have a really high-end controller, you're going to want to set your deadbands. And what that means is if you're like on this Turnigy controller, when you click over here, and I'll go ahead and exit this real quick, and we'll go into receiver, so you can see exactly what it is that I'm talking about. Right over here, you can see my roll and pitch, how they're kind of twitching. Anytime that the flight control board picks up on movements, which would be these twitching, it thinks that you're actually moving it, which cancels your GPS hold. So you definitely want to be sure and put your deadband for, let's see if I can find it again. So we're here, deadband, set deadband equal to 6. I think the values are 0 to 10. I was reading, of course, some more forums, and I've seen several people say something about 6 being worked best for them. So I set mine to 6 as well. The yaw deadband I did equal to the roll and pitch, which I think these two are. Let me check my notes here. I'm pretty sure that's, for the most part, just be sure when you leave CLI, if you've made any changes, to go ahead and hit save before you exit. I haven't done any changes, so we'll just hit exit. We'll reboot, and then what we're going to do is we're going to go into receive, or the receiver tab, as soon as it unlocks. Okay, now I'm going to assume and hope that everyone knows how to set up their auxiliary channels. I've got 4 channels set up. I have a 3. My auxiliary 2 is my flight modes. Auxiliary 1 is going to be return to home. I have a pot here that I use for the beeper. And then my last channel 4 is I actually use an arm switch. So when I flip the switch, my motors come on. So you got to make sure that you have all your auxiliary channels set up correctly so you know which one you're using. And you need to be able to see when you flip a switch what auxiliary channel it actually is flipping. So with that information, you go here and click auxiliary, and this is where you come in and you add your your ranges for everything: your arm, your angle, horizon, gyro. And then of course when you turn on GPS, you can see my GPS tab turn green up here because everything's powered on. Until you enable GPS, you will not have GPS home and GPS hold. Once it's enabled, it will pop up here on the screen. One of the biggest things when I'm trying to get GPS hold to actually work, and for the longest time I spent about a day going to bed very unhappy not being able to get this thing to even work at all, because at first all it did was drift. It did no course correction whatsoever. A lot of it I thought had to do with my GPS. I wasn't getting it quite the right it wasn't talking back and forth to each other. If we jump over here, GPS tab, you can see it says false, and you can see I'm actually getting some longitude and latitude. It is communicating, so I am in the house right at the moment, and I'm not getting any satellites or anything. One of the things that I noticed, if it's been off all day and I come in, I have a hard time picking up any satellites. But something I've realized, if I go outside and turn it on and let it get some satellites, and then when I bring it back here in the house, somehow or another it still is able to pick them up quicker. Maybe the signal's not quite as strong being in the house and having a hard time finding them, but once it finds them in the sky, it seems to be able to grab them even inside the house. Once you get your GPS, your baud rate, and you tell your CLI what GPS that you're actually using, it will turn your 3D. It'll actually fix. It'll be green up here instead of false, and then you'll have your speed and how many satellites you have. If you're seeing this information happening in this box, you are connected to your GPS. If you are not getting any of this here, then you definitely have an issue. But you ought to be able to see your altitude, longitude, all this stuff ought to be twitching and moving and carrying on. And normally, like I said, you'll see your satellites in this box right here and the speed, and then whether you got a fix or not here. Also, one of the things that I noticed when I actually turned position hold on, and at first I was really confused on, well, do I have a GPS lock or not? Well, like I said, when this thing's outside, it picks it. I would say it picks it up within a minute, and I'll have a full GPS lock where I can actually do GPS hold. There's a red light on the naze board, and this is something I'll go into in my 4th video. The way it flashes, it's unmistakably once you understand it. And also, one of the things that I noticed before is when you're in your flight modes, you turn GPS hold on and you do not have a lock. I have a beeper on it, and your beeper will go off, letting you know you do not have a lock. But anyway, we'll go back into auxiliary. One of the main things that I did not realize is, I thought when you turn GPS hold on that it automatically kicks a flight control on, or your one of your angle mode here on, and it does the thing itself. Well, come to find out, you have to have either angle or horizon mode activated when you do GPS hold. You have to have it. There's no question. And of course, you want to run your barometer switch here for your altitude. You have to run this one and this one. So when I flip my GPS hold switch, which is this one here, and you can hear my alarm beeping because I do not have a GPS lock right at the moment. But and you can see it's not lit up here either because I don't have a lock on it. But you can see as I toggle these switches here how that changes. But you need to run your gyro, your mag, or not your barometer, your GPS hold, and the angle mode when it gets to GPS home. And of course, when you turn return to home tab here, you also need to have your angle, barometer. I haven't got to mess with the mag. I think that will actually help some of it, but like I said, I haven't got into return to home, so I'm not 100% sure how well that's going to work. But anyway, you got to have, main thing, got to have the angle mode when you have configure your switches. So let's go. I'm going to unplug this, run outside real quick, see if I can get some satellites, bring it back in, and we'll kind of go over the GPS one more time so you can actually see kind of what's going on. So anyway, I'll do that, and I'll be right back. Alright, here we are, back in the house, plugged up with the USB. We'll come over and click the GPS tab, and as you can see, my 3D fix now is true, and it turned green, and I'm setting on 9 satellites. It was just 10. Anyway, longitude, latitude, you can see all this right here is working. I'm jumping up to 10 satellites now. Anyway, this right here is what you need to see to make sure that your GPS is actually functioning. I do know if you have the wrong baud rate or the incorrect baud rate, this will actually still be working. So it's very important to make sure that that you set the right your right baud rate in the CLI. The next thing I want to talk about in the initial set tab is magnetometer declination. This is a value that is very, very important. Depending on where you live at in the world, this is going to change from what mine is. I live in central United States, and where I live at, this is where my I think it's the degree between magnetic north and true north. That's the difference. From what I'm reading, every 3 months this will actually change. So you'll want to, or at least you'll want to update every 3 months. I know after a year's time it's definitely a way different value. Something else to consider is if you do travel, I would say 50 or 60 miles from your house or wherever you've got your get your declaration point at, you'll probably want to come in your CLI and update that. I don't know how important it is to have this here, as in to hold a GPS hold or return to home. But everything I read, it is an important value to have set correctly. I will have a link in the description where I found this number. When you get your declaration, it's going to be so many degrees, so many minutes and seconds, and you will have to actually convert that down to a decimal point, which basically this means 4.2 degrees, which I think it was 4 degrees. I can't remember how many minutes and seconds it was when I first got the value. It'll be usually 6 numbers long, depending on where you live. And also, depending on where you live, on east or west, this could be a negative number as well. But anyway, going back into auxiliary, now that I have, as you can see in my GPS tab, I do have a lock. I'm true, 9 satellites going to my auxiliary hill. And as I flip my flight mode switch, you will see that my green GPS hold light now comes on and my beeper is not beeping. So this is how I know that my nays agrees with the GPS on the fact that I do have a lock. So one of the things that I definitely want to comment again on this GPS hold is that you have to have your angle mode or your horizon mode. I usually use angle, and your barometer when you have GPS hold on. When I first started to get this going, I took out and flew it, and I turned my GPS hold thinking this was going to work. And you know, when I first added this range to that switch, I kind of thought, you know, is automatically going to do all of it. Well, from what I read, it has to have, you have to set ranges on these. You have to activate these in order for it to actually do its thing. Because before I added the angle and the barometer, it was all over the place. It would act like it didn't even know what GPS hold was. It would drift way, way, way off. And the one thing that I noticed, that the way it handled was completely different. So I had to quickly switch back into my angle mode, which is my first part of my switch, to actually get my control back, because it acted completely different. So that's one thing I definitely want to make sure everyone understands, is that GPS hold, barometer, and angle all have to be activated. Once I activated these, I was able to actually see a course correction in the GPS hold. The only problem was with that is it was in a 10-foot circle, or at least it seemed like it. It would drift. Maybe when I first turned it on, it seemed like it held the position pretty good, but if you have any outside forces like the wind, will blow it, and it would blow it a ways before it actually would come back to, or try to come back to, what my original waypoint or GPS hold position was. So that's something that I'm going to get into right now, talking about getting it tuned. Just like your flight controls, your PID tuning. Go ahead and tab on that. Your roll, your pitch, your yaw. Just like you tune these, you have to tune the POS, the PosR for your GPS hold. I'm sure most people know the roll, the pitch, the yaw, the altitude hold. Not really sure what VEL is. Those are still default. I left them just as they are. I think it's velocity. Not sure exactly what that does. POS is your position hold. PosR, I think, has got to do with when it returns to your POS hold. And these values that I have set right here work decently well. It was about 1 o'clock last night when I finally got these values set and went out and did a test flight. So I've only done it once. I'm kind of eager to get back out and try to do a GPS hold again. It was really windy today, so I didn't want to try it, because these values, I may need to tweak them a little bit on a windy day. But anyway, in a VR, I think that has something to do with your return to home. And like I said, I haven't got to mess with that a whole lot. These are some of the values that are on some forums that I was reading, that I went ahead and set them while I was doing it. Level, I think it has to do with how quick it responds, or how level it keeps the quadcopter. And the mag, it has to do with the magnometer, I think, is how sensitive the gain, how sensitive you turn it up to how sensitive the compass is, or the magometer is on it. I did find a forum. I've read and read, trying to find what these values mean, and if anybody knows what the exactly roll and pitch, yawn, and out hold, of course we all know what those are, but I was trying to find something on exactly what these meant, because I really didn't know. And what the values here that you set, how they react into with the PID settings. Getting your flight controller set up and the roll and pitch and yawn is one thing, but it's a whole different ballpark when you come down here, because changing these just the littlest bit made a big difference. But the POS hold, I kept this at a low number, and I think the P here value is how quick it does the approach to going back to your waypoint, or your your origin, or when you flip the switch. If this number, I've noticed, if this number is turned up too much, it tends to overshoot, and then it goes past your waypoint, and it's going to happen to come back again, and then it overshoots again. So that's I would keep this low. Maybe start at 0.05 and work your way up, and to where it's not overshooting. If it's overshooting, you can back it back down just a couple of clicks and then try it again and see how that looks. The eye here, I believe what this is I'm not sure exactly what it does, but what I've noticed playing with this is when it goes back to my home position, let's say that I did overshoot my waypoint just a little bit. This one here seemed like it has a lot to do with how it kind of did a toilet bowl effect. It was like doing circles around. And I think my battery's about dead in my helicopter right quick. Hang on 1 second, I'm going to change it. Yep, sitting here talking, my battery is going dead. Alright, change that out so we can keep on keeping on here. Where was I? But anyway, the eye value on the POS kind of had a toilet bowl effect over the waypoint. I noticed as I gradually brought this down, it seemed like it quit doing that and held a more stable hover over the waypoint. These values here, I can't remember exactly what they did. I know the D, I think had to do something with how big of a circle or waypoint that it actually had to stay in. But I wanted to stay on Q, so I turned that to 0. I think this is the position hold rate in which it returns to the waypoint. So I turned this gain up to 5 and 0.10 on the I. And like I said, I can't remember exactly what that does. It has to do with how well it keeps it on how well it returns to the waypoint once it realizes like the wind blows it away. And I'm pretty sure, I think this I here has something to do with that, the wind blowing it, how fast it may react to go back to the waypoint. I'm not really sure what that does. I just kind of played with it, and those are the kind of settings that I've come up with. The NAVR, I'm pretty sure that has to do with your return to home. And like I said, I haven't messed with that much, so these are some values that I found that someone claimed they had really good success with. And like I said, I haven't tried it, but I'm going to experiment more with that, and I will cover that a little bit better in part 4. The level is, of course, I think how quickly it keeps itself level. I'm not really sure. Like I said, if anybody has any idea what some of these names are to these and description on exactly what these settings do and how it reacts, that would be awesome, because I haven't been able to find it yet. Magnetometer, of course, is the how the sensitivity on your magnetometer. But anyway, so to recap on this, first of all, in your CLI, make sure that of course you feature your GPS. One of the things that I didn't realize at first when I first started doing this is to set your serial port, serial _ port _2 _ synchronize. It's got to be set in your CLI or it will not work. Make sure your GPS baud rate is correct. Like I said, if you get the ones from readytoflyquads.com, they have already pre-configured these to 5 hertz and the baud rate of 115200. Of course, in CLI, you'll also need to update your provider, the GPS provider, O being the other GPS, which off the top of my head, I can't remember what it's called. And then the value 1 is going to be Ublox. And then again, the SBAS mode, it has an auto, and I think basically this is telling the nays where in the world you live at so that it can acquire the satellites faster. I believe that's what that means. It is in the documentation on all the values that you are. So you can set it to auto, but I was reading on some forums that it could take a little bit longer to get a satellite lock. But like I said, with the changing that value to 2 for the United States, as soon as I plug in my flight battery, I've got a GPS lock within seconds. It seemed like. Like I said, I'm really impressed with this GPS. I would definitely recommend it for 18 bucks. Can't beat it. Let's see. Make sure you set your deadbands. Like I said, this has to do with the way you're over in your receiver, as I showed you before. Basically what that means is if you got a little bit of twitching in your sticks, it could be mistakenly thinking those are actually inputs. And when you add a deadband to it, basically all that's doing is giving a little bit more of a margin of error so that it doesn't read that it's actually getting an input, because it will cancel your position hold if it's reading inputs. And also on your auxiliary, let me change back over here. Make sure that you are in angle, barometer, and GPS hold. Those have all got to be there for it to work. This is one of the first things that I did that was like magic, because before, like I said, I couldn't see any course correction or it actually doing something. Once I activated these with that switch, it was I went to bed happy that night. So anyway, initial setup, declaration, be sure and get that set, and then of course again, here's my PIDs, what I have set. Everyone's going to be a little bit different, how heavy you are, how much stuff you have on it, how big you are, what kind of motors you're running, what kind of props. I think all that's going to have a play in how your POS and POS are. But these two right here are the ones that you're going to want to play with to get your GPS hold to work correctly. Okay, so that pretty much covers it. I'm going to go ahead and get off this here and go back to the camera for the closing part of this video. And here we are, back at the bench. A couple more things I want to cover before we wrap this up. I did get a chance to balance these props. And incidentally, I don't know if it was in my first video that I had, but the Dual Bro balancer, that is, by my opinion, is the very best that you can get for $25. You just, I'm really impressed with it. It seems to be very accurate. They even make a bar that you can balance these self-tightening props on. And this is actually off of my Free Sky helicopter. And I don't have the gimbal on it yet, and the GoPro, and when you don't run those on those, it's a little top heavy, so if you land it in grass, most of the time it is going to tip over. Well, I ended up breaking a prop, and this is a brand new one I pulled out of the box, and you can see just how bad it is, because I had some really bad vibrations coming from it. But anyway, I just kind of wanted to talk about that for a second, because it is a good balancer. Been really impressed with it. These APC props, I did have to put some tape on them. See if you can find a spot there. On 3 of them, I believe, I ended up having to placing some tape on it. See it there. Not that bad, like just a small piece of tape. Pretty much got the balance out. The hubs, it's kind of strange. The regular hubs. I'm sorry, the regular, not the reverse pitch, the regular pitch. All of these I've had to put, you can see that I had to balance the hubs out. Had to put a spot of super glue on it. And what I normally do is I take a piece of like 220 grit paper and kind of scuff that plastic up a little bit. And that hot glue tends to stick really well that way. I haven't had any come off. But it's weird, the pusher props, or the reverse props, both of them didn't have to have any glue on the hubs. I thought that was kind of strange, but anyway, very small amount of glue on that one there to get it to balance out. But like I said, it wasn't that bad. It's kind of typical, but this balancer gets them so close that they could be off the minute a little bit, and it'll show up. On the Mini OSD, let's see, what did I do right here? It is called the FTID adapter. This is the USB port that you got to have in order to plug into the Mini OSD adapter. You got to have that. Like I said before, all 6 pins, got to have them. Make that thing work. That was a mistake I made at the beginning, and it took me hours before it dawned on me that you got to have all 6 pins in order to flash the minimum OSD. Another thing you might consider getting, have these on ready to fly, quadsreadytofly.com. They're $5. You just plug them into the balancer port here, or plug. Let's see if I can do that real quick. And they show you the voltage on each cell, and then the end voltage of all 3. For $5, it's kind of good to have, just to quick reference and seeing what your voltages are. Again, this is where I'm going to be mounting my Mobius camera right here. And the last thing, well, next to the last thing I want to show you are the LED strips. These are the programmable LED strips that you can configure with your Naze control. Get a close look. So you can get a close look at that. There you go. Ground, 5 volt. Be careful when you do buy these that they do come in other than 5 volt, and you need to have the 5 volt. I bought these. Here's the package that they came in. See if we can zoom in on that. That is the place that I bought it at. 30 LED lights. I think it was $16 plus shipping and handling. It's not too bad. And just to note that WS2812B, that is the kind of LED strip that you have to have. It's all in documentation on what LED strips to actually make sure you have. And the last thing I wanted to show you is my ground station. This is kind of what I'm working with right at the moment. I haven't invested any money into the goggles yet. I've been trying to get all this set up, and then when I get comfortable enough with flying with the LCD screen, then I'm going to go ahead and move up to some goggles. But as you can see, this is my tripod I set up, and even if I do get the goggles, I am going to still run this ground station because my antenna is nearly 8 foot tall, and I figured the higher I got it, the better off that you'll be to keep from getting dead spots in your video. And just real quick, this is the OSD. I have the lens cap on. Makes it a little easier to see what we're looking at, so I'll put that back on. Like I said, you can get in here and change your settings with your controller. And there's a lot of videos on this, but I just figured since I'm doing this that you can kind of see everything we got. And as I tilt the quad up and tilt it over, you can see the directional bar showing me that. Up at the top is my heading, north, east, and south. The cool thing is right here, if I can get the glare off of this, right there are my satellites. Currently have 8 satellites. And then has my longitude, latitude, GPS coordinates, my throttle, and a lot of this is not configured yet. I still got to move stuff around, change a few things. I'm not running RSSI. It may be something, that's what the 0% flashing is there, my signal strength. I don't know if I'll ever get into that because honestly I don't know that I'm going to fly that far away that it's going to be an issue. I do have my flight battery voltage right there, the 12.3 volts. I need to configure it so that I can see my camera battery and see what it's at too. But up here at the top you can see when I toggle my flight mode, so you can actually see the flight modes that you're in. And I have, there goes the signal. The top one there is the the one that looks kind of like the satellite. There is my GPS lock showing that I got it. Got 9 satellites. You can toggle through those. And then of course when you arm it, it goes to arm, shows you your throttle, how fast you're going, your heading, your direction to home, your altitude. And then when you kill it, it shows you your trip, your distance you covered, the max altitude and stuff like that. So it's really cool. Minimal OSD, $11. You get all that with $11. And I'll just real quickly show you. You can, with your sticks, you can get into your PIDF control. Just page over. There's roll, pitch, on, out, GPS, everything right there. You can change it if you need to. Out in the field, so that makes it really nice. These are all the menus. I'll just kind of go through them real quick. Voltage alarm, RSSI, calibration, so you can actually do all your calibrations while you're out flying. And then you can change that. GPS, there's GPS there. Whole bunch of different screens that you can go through and actually configure everything. So anyway, we'll go ahead and exit out of here. Get this over. And exit. There we go. Okay, so that's pretty much it that I have to cover in this segment. The other thing I thought about doing is, this by the way is an LCD screen that you strap on, so back here, you strap on behind the seat of a car for the kids. This is one of my kids. I have 4 of them. And this one was kind of laying around, and I thought I'd give it a try. And the thing I was worried most about was the actually having going to a blue screen. Well, it just so happens that, see if I can unplug this. Whoops, wrong one. See if I can plug this. Hang on, I'll set you down for just a second so I can plug this back in. Doesn't work when you unplug the battery. Alright, there's that. I'm going to unplug my battery on my controller. So I got a snowy screen. No blue screen of death. So I just had that laying around, so I just figured, hey, why not? I'm just going to use that until I get the hang of FPV flying. And then when I get up to a little more comfortable with flying around with it, then I'll go ahead and invest in the Dominator goggles that they have. I think they're around $500. A lot of money to invest. I wanted to be sure that I got the knack of it before actually decided to invest that kind of money into a pair of goggles. See if I can get this plugged back in. Okay, there we go. And video comes right back. What I'm powering this with is Turnigy Multi-Star 5.2 megahertz battery. So you ain't standing on my head here. There we go. Got that from Hobby King. It was $30. And I actually did a test on this to find out how much of the megahertz battery did I use. So I hooked this up just like I've got it right here. And I left it on for an hour, and then I charged the battery, turned it on, left it on for an hour, and then I charged it again, and then my charger will show me how many milliamps I had to put back in the battery. Well, when I figured it out, how many milliamps I used in an hour, bringing it down to using the 5,000 milliamps, I can run this ground station as it sets for about 12 hours on that battery pack, which I thought is perfect. It lasted the whole day, no problem. The only other thing I was considering about doing is, these do actually have speakers on them. Kind of see the circles there. The Mobius, you can actually get sound off of it, stream sound off of it. So I've left my wires unhooked. I'm thinking about going ahead and running the sound through the Mobius and transmitting it back here. I thought maybe actually being able to hear the motors while I'm flying may help with my, getting a good feel of how the thing's reacting. Being able to hear whether the motors are spinning up or spinning down. But anyway, that is all I've got to share with you in this part 3 of the series. Hopefully I can get to part 4. It's being cold outside and the weather's starting to turn nasty, so it may be a couple of weeks before I can find someone to help me record some flight videos. I may make a short one of GPS hold just to show you just how well it holds, because I could pretty much easily do that by myself and I won't even have to leave my house to do it. But anyway, that's all I've got for now. I hope that everything that I've covered here has helped someone and took out the ahas out of everything. I enjoy doing this. I have a lot of fun. The only thing that makes it difficult and stressful is that you're trying to find the information to fix your problems. And really the problems are so simple. It's just a matter of fact of knowing what you need to do to fix them. And these are my experiences that I've shared with you in this video, and hopefully that it's helped someone else out configuring their GPS and actually getting their GPS to work. Kind of took some questions out of it. I still got a lot of tuning to do, experiments and testing, and I'll have some follow-up videos with FPV flights that I'll kind of cover some of my adjustments and anything else that I've done. But anyway, that is all I've got to share for now, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them below. And once again, if you have any suggestions, I'm open to hear them. Anyway, thanks guys.